or bear with me rather. Great! Now I've connected on YouTube and Facebook, and it's time for my weekly studio stream. I do want to say I love when folks comment on to elaborate on their own experiences and so forth. I'm not quite as adept with Facebook Live as I am with YouTube Live. And so I just want to encourage you that even if you are watching on Facebook Live, if you would like to comment, can you please sign on YouTube and comment there? Because that scrolls in the streaming software that I'm using, and I definitely get the notification for it. Ooh. Don't have a sign in to the chat. Hang on just a moment. Okay. Not so much with that. All right, so let's get started. I am working on, well, first I should explain my headwear. If you have watched the stream from last week, or let's say you haven't watched the stream from last week, that stream and this week's stream are about the collection of hats that I'm working on for what's called the Phantom 35 Challenge, hashtag Phantom 35, which is a design challenge, a costuming and fashion challenge that John Westwood Hill from JWH Millinery and I came up with as just sort of a fun thing to participate in, because this year, in October of 2021, will be the 35th anniversary of the musical Phantom of the Opera, which I think he and I both were fans of when it first came out, and the music is still something that we both enjoy, and this was just part of a brainstorm of a fun challenge that we could come up with that was timely, connected to some sort of big event. And so last week in the studio stream, I talked about there's two hats that I'm doing out of the Performance Velvet by Spoon, that's printed in custom prints from Spoonflower digital fabric printers here in Durham, North Carolina, actually. And the hat that I worked on last week was the first of the hats with this printed velvet. And I have 3 iterations of it here, because what we talked about last week was the refining of the pattern that was used for this hat. And in fact, I made a second one out of the other printed velvet that I got, even though originally I only planned for this hat to be made, this print to be made in this style. By the time that I was done refining the pattern for this, going through my 2 iterations of it here, I loved it so much that I had enough of this one left over, because the pattern that I'm doing for it, I didn't need to develop it on the fly the way I did with this one. And I decided I would just make one out of the other print as well. So these 2 prints, this one is a bunch of designs for opera posters from the Art Nouveau period, and they're collaged together onto this fabric. And the pattern for this hat and this one that I'm wearing as well is based on a design by Elsa Schiaparelli from 1930 called the Mad Cap, which hers was made out of knit. This one is made out of velvet. So you have a little bit of a structural difference. Well, you have a significant structural difference to the textile that was used for Schiaparelli's versus for mine. And then this piece here was the paper miniature of the pattern that is used to make this hat. And these lines here are tucks that get stitched into the middle of this rectangle, which then gets seamed up the back and top stitched seam allowances, and then seamed this way to create this sort of like kind of cat ears, but not really shape. And I loved this first movie poster hat that I did in last week's stream so much that, as I said, I had ordered enough of this fabric. This is a sort of an ominous chandelier design that's printed on this one. And I'd ordered enough of it that I was like, I could make another one of those hats out of that dark purple chandelier fabric, because that's actually something that I would wear on a regular basis in the winter. It's more of my wardrobe palette, color palette. So that's the hat that I have on today. And this is sort of a test drive. I made the copy of the movie poster hat, and then I haven't, I didn't put this one on. I just made a copy and tried it on real quick to make sure it fit my head, but then I didn't wear it for any extended period of time. So I'll be doing that today. But let's talk about the other hats in this collection, because this, I guess, began, we looked at this hat a couple of streams ago, and I'm working on a video about this project overall, because I wasn't sure when I began it whether it would be part of this Phantom collection or not, and I still kind of am not, but I'm thinking of it as part of the collection of Phantom 35 hats, whether it actually stays in that classification at the end of it or not. This would be a very abstract kind of thing, that the hat itself has kind of the mood of the production, not so much that it's taken from any visual or artistic or sonic reference in it. But we looked at this one back when I was considering what to do with these two different vintage hat blocks I borrowed from my friend and colleague Kim, who has a millinery business called Hat Nip Hats, which is actually linked down in the description of all of my studio streams for the year 2021. And so Kim and I had a block party and traded blocks. She's got one of mine, and I'm actually going to take her another one of mine. I think she went on vacation, but I'm pretty sure she's back now. We'll have to schedule that. Digression. And I blocked on this little slouch hat, which if I put it on this head here, you can see the form of it, that it's a style of hat that I just sort of shorthand as a glamorous crumple. Like, it looks like something just got wadded up and tossed onto a hat form and happens to be this glamorous, beautiful hat. Like, if you look at it, as I turn it around here, the shape is actually fairly complex and sophisticated. And here we go. On this side, what I did the first time that anyone on the stream saw this hat was I had these quills, which these are stripped ostrich quills, so all of the fuzzy floof that is on an ostrich plume has been stripped off of this, and now it's just this very graphic strand of the spine. And I had two of these stabbed through the hat, kind of going up this way, and I liked that just fine. I took a poll on Facebook and Instagram about whether I should add more quills or feathers or whatever, and I got some great suggestions. But I think it was Kim, actually, that mentioned or maybe I don't know, it doesn't matter. There's these little pinches in the blocked hat. I mean, when you block it, you have to use ropes and pin them down in the crevices of these little pinched tucks in the hat body. And I thought, well, I could I could thread that quill through there, sort of in and out, to keep those pinches secured. And I did that. And then inside of here, I realized after I did it, like, here it is without being pinched down, but I thought, oh, I kind of want to secure that in a pinch between the tip of the crown here and where we have a sort of a divot in the shape. I wanted instead of it going actually through the hat body, I thought, oh, I could pinch that around it and make a little channel for it that also stabilizes the quill, and it becomes this, really sophisticated. I think it's really sophisticated. That's just my opinion. It becomes this sophisticated hat, and I love that. I love the contrast of what I think of seagrass, which is what this hood is woven from. I think of seagrass as a kind of a casual summer, like usually you see it in beach hats, and a material that is evocative of casual summer vacation hats. And so the fact that this seagrass hood is done, it's dyed black, and it's got a thread of lurex, like a mylar metallic thread, twisted through it, that it now becomes seagrass, but it's sparkly, black sparkly, and that contrast is a really interesting juxtaposition of the casual and the what seems formal to me. So I do love it like this, with the one quill threaded through those pinches that are intrinsic parts of the block. I meant to bring the block in here to show you, and then I started the stream and completely spaced it. You can see pictures of it on my Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. If you're on YouTube, then it's linked in the masthead of my channel, and also the About section. And if you're on Facebook, it's linked on the flow page in my bio. So, oh wait, no, not Facebook. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram. It's Bricoleuse, brico.loose. Anyway, I'm digressing. What I would like to do next to this, though, is one more trim story. And what I mean by a trim story is when I trim a hat, I often collect together aesthetic things like ornaments and feathers and ribbons, and that is a collection from which I'm going to trim the hat out. But I think about what different components could communicate as part of, as if I use them to trim out the hat. And the ones that become the collection that goes on the hat are the trim story. And so right now, the trim story in the previous, this incarnation and the previous one were quills. And I like quills, but I got something this week. I have to lift this up so you can see it. These binder rings, which, in a normal use of these, they're hinged binder rings that sort of form like a 3-ring binder, except without the 3-ring binder part. You can use just one of them, or you can use, however many you need. If you only have one whole part poked in your paper, or you don't want to have boards of a cover, you don't want it to be bulky. I use these a lot in with theatrical documentation, like to instead of a staple, I use these. And it occurred to me that it might be fun to riff off of this idea of messing with these pleats that are in the block, that are blocked into the shape of the hat body, and stick a ring through them instead, that in a way that is sort of evocative of piercings, like an earring in your ear. And I ordered this assorted set of them from, I don't know, somebody online. And there were 4 different sizes, which was great because, when they tell you what the size is online. And even if you are pretty sure that you just know what, 32 millimeters looks like, or an inch and a quarter looks like, then like you can even get out a ruler and see, and it'll still show up and not be what you think it should be or what you thought it would be. So I am going to put 2, maybe 3. There's a rule of 3 in theatrical design, and I suspect also in fashion design and millinery design, that if you have an ornament and you're going to put more than one, you shouldn't put 2, you should put 3. You should put odd numbers of decor onto something. And that's only a rule in that somebody decided that your eye wants to see more than, doesn't want to see even numbers of something. And okay, like, but here it is with true, and I have to say, like, I kind of want there to be a third one on there, which is good because there's room for a third one. But let's put it on and see. So I kind of also thought that I might want this larger one, which I have them going up to be this large. So this is definitely too large. Too large for me. I mean, and since this is a hat for me, maybe I want a larger one. See, I kind of... Ooh, here's an idea. I could put them around the edge of this sort of pinched ridge at the tip of the glamorous crumple. That could be interesting. Put one on here and we can take a look at it and see. Now, that one that goes through the outside, I don't know. See, I feel like, let's put it on the head here, and you're going to see, those of you on YouTube will see this better than folks, I think, at least, like the way that it looks to me on Facebook is that you can't necessarily see this well, but it's possible that you're getting a better view than I'm getting because I'm doing this on my phone. But I can see it a lot better on YouTube. Now that I have it, I do like that ring through the ridge, but I also like the way the other rings emphasize those pinches in the hat. And I guess there is one more pinch that I could use the ring to manipulate, but now that I've put this one on the rim of that tip, let's say, I'm kind of interested in putting more on there and seeing what I think about it. So let me move these. And if you have thoughts and you want to put them into the chat, I would love to hear as well. Anyone else's opinion. I mean, I don't have any reason to be making this hat beyond for fun, for the challenge that we came up with. So it's not, the stakes are not as high as when I build a hat for the stage. And I will say I return to the theater in August. August 2nd is my first day back on site. And that's interesting. See, I'm going to take this hat off so I can try this one on now. Oh, I am a fan of that. do like those 3 rings around that edge. Now when I put a trim story together like this, as I did with this one and the 2 quills before it, and with any other hat that I've worked on this whole summer during the time that I've been streaming, I often have talked about how I like to trim something out and then just leave it on a head in my studio. Oh, I want to change that. I'm going to be anal about the spacing now because it bothers me that this one is slightly different distance away from the other 2. I'll trim something out and then I will just let it sort of percolate. Sit on the hat, on the head form in my studio and just sort of live my life around it and see what I think about it aesthetically. The longer that it's present in my space and what I think about it. And in this case, my initial response is a positive one to these 3 rings here. One of these is the wrong size. Like, that doesn't look right. Yes, it does not look right. Wow, these are difficult. I returned to the theater on August the 2nd, and then our graduate students come back. I believe it's the next Monday or possibly Tuesday, and then the semester starts. So it's like on us, and I believe that the theater plans to announce their season in, they told us the other day, August 4th, which is a Wednesday. And then we'll know what we're shooting for. But right now, the plan is that we will all be working back on site. And regardless, theoretically, ideally, hopefully, many of us are vaccinated, but the campus policy is that everyone will remain masked indoors. And I have to admit, I'm pretty excited about the fact that my dye room, I can close it off from the rest of the shop and turn on the ventilation hoods, and the nature of the ventilation in that space means that when I'm working in there, I could just not have a mask on, and even if somebody came in to talk to me, they wouldn't, policy-wise, it wouldn't be a problem. But that's neither here nor there. So this is my trim story that's going to sit here in my studio for, let me show it so you can really see it good on the Facebook stream as well. This is going to sit in my studio for the next couple of days, and I'll be thinking about, I'll be sort of subconsciously responding to it, but also thinking about like whether I think that the rings are the right scale or if they should be a little bit bigger, whether I need 5 instead of 3 or just 1, or they need to move, we'll see. I'm kind of hoping, because of that juxtaposition of the casual and the formal, I'm kind of hoping that this could be a hat that I wear in daily life for the remainder of the summer, as long as it's straw hat season, which straw hat season, straw is a summer material. You don't see straw hats worn in the wintertime, partly because that's not good for personal warmth. The point of straw is that air blows through it, and you don't have retained body heat, and in the winter you want to retain body heat, which is why something like this hat, which is this velvet hat that is the Schiaparelli Madcap knockoff, is why this hat is technically a winter hat. I realize it's July and it's 1,000,000 degrees in most areas of the world right now. But it's not that hot in my house, and I just wanted to wear it. So I'm getting used to it. It's comfortable. It's not hot. It would be hot if I were wearing it outside, though. And I would like this hat to become something that I wear on a daily basis for the duration of the rest of the summer, when a straw hat is what's appropriate and you are going in and, or I will be going in and out of unair-conditioned outdoors versus air-conditioned campus buildings and theatrical workspaces. Some of which are actually, some of the theatrical workspaces are air conditioned, like my millinery studio, and some of them, like the loading dock scene shop. I guess maybe it's air conditioned if they were shut everything off, but they open those doors and it's actually more like working outside, but in a shaded area. And so the point is, like, I don't think I would wear this hat in the normal climate of, excuse me, I don't think I'd wear it in the normal climate of the building until after, the end of straw hat season is, September 15th, I believe. I'll have to look that up after the stream. Which, incidentally, if you have never heard the term straw hat season, or felt hat day, the point after which you begin to wear felt hats, Google the straw hat riots, because those, back when straw hats were something that people frequently wore as a everyday garment in the summer, and you would convert to a felt when it became cool, straw hats became, that conversion day was kind of like don't wear white after Labor Day, one of those sartorial rules that became twisted and manipulated according to people's ulterior motives, I guess, maybe. Like, I read some interesting theorizing, which I concur with it, that part of the reason that there were a lot of fairly brutal attacks of people who were caught wearing straw hats after Straw Hat Day was that it was really an excuse for racial and class violence, for basically white supremacists to beat up black Americans who were wearing a straw hat, and it was after the day at which they were supposed to be wearing felt hats. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff to read about it, and it gave me a lot to think about in how we craft sartorial rules and expectations and enforce them in ways that have nothing to do with their origins and their sources. Like, you would think that that something as innocuous as it is smart to wear felt hats over straw once it begins to get cooler because your body will be warmer, that you could codify that into a sartorial rule that people then are purportedly so passionate about that they're gonna beat people up for wearing the wrong hat. And in fact, that's actually just an excuse to be a bigot and a bully. Wow, this took a complete 90-degree turn from let's talk about hats that I'm working on today in the studio. But I have finished what I meant to tell you about this hat right here, and I'd like to move on to the hat that I actually intended to make out of this purple printed velvet with the chandeliers on it. And I have a pile of stuff here to show you, and the first thing is this image here, which this is sort of a fashion sketch, like a milliner's sketch of here's how I imagine the hat looking when it's done and it exists and it's put onto a human with a face. And this side, this diagram here, is more like, I think we call it a flat in the fashion industry, where you illustrate what the garment looks laid out flat structurally from a pattern perspective. And so, this one, it looks kind of like a soda can with some lines on the side, right? Like it's a cylinder, and it has a tip and a side band. Like it is a structured hat that has two pieces to the pattern. Unlike this one that I'm wearing that only has one piece that's just a big rectangle, and then you manipulate it to get this shape out of it. For this one, it's got two pieces, a side band and a tip, and I've drafted the pattern for it. I used my tip oval for my head size, or this is a little larger than my head size, but it's how big I want the hat tip to finish. And it's how big I want it to, to fit me with this particular type of fabric, because this Spoonflower velvet, the performance velvet, all velvet has a pile. And the pile of this velvet is such that I know from making these hats out of it that I need to put a pretty substantial amount of ease into the pattern to accommodate that pile, because it's not just the ground, the woven ground of the fabric that you then have doubled up, and then where there's seam allowance, it's quadrupled in some places. But the thickness of that pile adds dimensionality and density to the hat pattern, or to the finished hat that you need to accommodate for in the pattern itself. So my head tends to be around a 22, 21 and a half, depends on where I want to wear it, which this hat, because I'm wearing it not flat level with the ground, parallel to the ground, but I'm wearing it canted at an angle down under the occipital bone of my skull. That's a different circumference than my hat size, which is this circumference here around the level with the ground area of my head, right? So anyway, that's to say that this is not my head size, but this is the size that I want the pattern to finish at. And I have, traced out an oval, which I don't know if you can see the pattern that's printed on this. It's sort of a gloomy darkness with this spooky chandelier with these little lights that are barely glowing. I centered that on there, so that'll be centered on the crown of the hat, which it's meant to be worn slouched off to the side, and this was inspired by actually some hats that I saw on Instagram that I loved, but this oval, is going to be slouched off to the side, and so you will actually see the orientation of the print placement on it quite well, as I imagine. This actually, now that I think about it, it's also kind of inspired by the shape of this hat, how there's a tip on it and a slouch and so forth, but this is a much simpler version of it. And if you look at my flat drawing here, you'll see there's 3 tucks, or that's what those lines indicate, is that there's tucks into which a piece of beaded fringe is inserted. So much like this hat has tucks, this second one is going to have them as well. These tucks, the fold is going to the outside, so you can see it right here. But for these, the tuck will go to the inside of that sideband cylinder, and I have one of them pinned out here. And I have, can you see that beaded fringe there? If I shake it, maybe you can see it wiggle. That is, of course, inspired by the crystals on a chandelier, and in this case, they're black because the chandelier is black, and so I would assume it's crystals. Well, it has black crystals hanging off of it. And you can maybe, I don't know if you can see it well. I don't think the contrast is good enough. Hey, Karen Tully, good to see you, showing up on Facebook. I think maybe you can see I've thread traced the lines, thread marks here, here, and here. So if we consider the illustration of this one and the 3 tucks, which are parallel but staggered in a diagonal down the length of the side band, each one of those tucks has this, it's basically beaded fringe, you know, it's a ribbon strip that these crystal dangles are stitched on. And so before this stream, I marked out those, can you see here where I have penciled out those 3 marks, and I thread traced them, and I placed 1 strip of the crystals on there, and that is what I'm going to actually do here for the remainder of this stream, which there's only like 10 minutes left, I think, but I have hopes to get it done, is hand sew it, because I was able to machine baste the crystal trim on with a zipper foot, but I don't want to run the risk that my needle will hit any of the glass beads. I try, as a theatrical milliner, to use a sewing machine when at all possible, and I'm maintaining that, even though the hats I'm working on here in my home studio are not for any theatrical production, and there isn't a deadline. Well, there is a deadline, I guess, for this Phantom Challenge, but frankly, it's October. Like, that's ages away. And I'm used to making hats with a 4-week or 5-week deadline. So, you know, 3 months is like, whatever. Anyway, I machine basted that strip of bead fringe in there, and now I'm going to hand sew the tuck into the velvet to stabilize it and make that sort of a finished fold. It's not really a pleat. It's really a tuck, technically speaking. So let's keep calling it a tuck. And I will give you the caveat, I am not a skilled or speedy hand stitcher. I was at one time in my life, but my eyesight has gotten to be so unfortunately bad that in non-pandemic times, when I have a assistant to make hats at work, hand sewing is something that I delegate to them, if at all possible, for efficiency's sake. It's not that I think I'm too good for hand sewing, and it's not that I even hate hand sewing or personally dislike it or whatever. It's that in theatrical millinery, finishing your work expeditiously is what often takes precedence over, that's often the deciding factor. Like, what is the quickest way to get this done with the least compromise of quality? Because, I mean, to be realistic, there will always be some point of quality that you have to figure out how to compromise in order to make your deadline. But, you know, for myself, that there are some things that are an absolute last choice. Like, I will never glue a hat together in any way unless there is no other choice, or unless that is the best choice. I had a student who was making a drag wig out of, that was actually a hat, you know, because she was making it out of essentially craft foam, microself foam, and she was like, what should I use to put this thing together? And I was like, hot glue. And she was shocked that I recommended hot glue. But I'm like, look, that's the best adhesive for the job here. Like, that's what you are, that is not only the fastest, but actually the best for connecting microfoam to itself and to other elements of ornamentation and stuff. Anyway, I'm doing pretty good on this hand sewing here for someone who's, blind and has no assistant. Which I will admit that because I do have such bad myopia, like I can see things up close pretty well without my glasses, but boy, the whole internet is just blurs right now, and so I will put my glasses on and see if I'm missing anyone's comments, just because, why not? So I'm over halfway done with this first stitch, and okay, my stream alarm is gonna go off here telling me it's time to quit in 4 minutes. Can I finish? I hope so, because I really want to show you all what the finished version of this stitched seam looks like without these pins stabbed through it. So let's see. I'm really excited about this collection of hats, I have to say. And I do hope that more people from the costume community and the millinery YouTuber community join in with Phantom inspired hats. And in fact, folks on Facebook who follow me there as well, like if you have any social media presence, it could hopefully be a great way to get some visibility from markets and viewers and fans of the work that maybe don't follow you but find you through the hashtag. At least that was our motivation in coming up with it as a challenge. I have to say, as I'm coming to the end of this stream, that next week will be not the last stream ever, but the last stream for a while, because I'm going to have to put the stream on hiatus for a return to the actual workplace, and I haven't yet determined, like, are they going to allow me to stream at the theater? Are they interested in that? Like, they might be like, no way, or they might be like, oh, that's great, that's an audience that we would like to have. Like, I don't know, but the point is, the stream is not going to be every Thursday anymore. It's going to go to a scheduled basis. Oh, this is so cute. So here's my one tuck with the inserted bead fringe of the chandelier, and there's going to be 2 more, and then I'm going to stitch it all up. I think I'm going to stitch it all up on the machine, the back side band seam, and setting the tip into the side band, but we'll see. Time may make that I may discover that once I get more of this bead fringe in here that it's too fiddly, and I'm concerned about hitting it with the sewing machine. But I started with the lowest, like there's a line here and there's a line here of thread marking, with the idea that this bead fringe wants to hang downward. So, rather than start at the top and then have the dangles getting in my way and being a pain, I started with the lowest one. There's my alarm. All right. Wow. Is my stream still on? Yes, my stream is still on. So, to get back to this, the alarm is letting me know that it's time for me to end my stream. So hopefully by next week, maybe I'll have this whole thing put together. Maybe I will have just one or two more of these bead French sections inserted into my velvet. We'll see. I would love to have it to a point where we could talk about what the finishing is for it, and certainly for this one, it may be done all together. I don't know. Stream is going on hiatus after next week. It's possible that next week I may be streaming in a BioVisor. If you know what that is, it's then that is probably very intriguing. If you don't know what that is, it's that sort of personal respirator equipment that looks like an undersea diver's helmet from the 19th century or whatever. It's like, I have one that I'm going to use to teach in this, at least I hope to use it to teach in this year at the university, because I'm going to have a class that meets in the main costume shop, and the university policy for fall is that everyone remains masked, but that instructors may take their mask off to teach if they are vaccinated and if they are 6 feet away from their students. And I don't think I can effectively teach something small and fiddly like glove making, which is our first unit this fall, in a mask, particularly because one of my students, English is not their first language, and they do better if they can see my face or anyone's face to talk while they're to sort of lip read, to really understand what the words are that are coming out, because they're not a native English speaker. So anyway, I hope to be able to accommodate that with the BioVisor, because it's like more than a mask. It's a self-contained respirator with a glass faceplate or a plastic, see-through. So I'm thinking about trying to stream in it next time to test the audio. Like, can you hear me? I've been told that the biggest complaint is it's got a fan that powers the air circulation, and that the noise of that overcomes the speech of the person who's wearing it. But I bought a lavalier mic, and I'm hoping to have a microphone inside and a speaker outside, and I might just test that in the stream next time. And if it's not gonna work, then I won't keep it on. But it would be fun to just give it a try, since sewing and working on hats is akin to what I will be doing when I'm wearing it to teach at work, and I don't know, it could be fun. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for today's stream. I have been doing this every Thursday afternoon for over a year now, if you can believe that. Actually, is that true? No, I think I started it in September. It doesn't matter. A long time. Not as long as Denise Wallace-Spriggs, who used to stream every Friday for Fun Friday Millinery on Facebook, but her stream has gone on temporary, not hiatus. I think she's planning to stream once a month on a weekend, and that's I have enjoyed being a part of that stream's audience, and I've modeled some of my stream after some of the things that she does, because I've really enjoyed being part of her little community of Fun Friday Milliners. So anyway, that's a digression. This stream is going on hiatus, and also my upload schedule is changing. It's going from, instead of every Monday, I will upload a video at least once a month. Next month, August, there will be at least 3, because there's the once a month video that will happen the last week of the month, the last Monday of the month. But there's also the Costume Symposium, which happens August 19th through 22nd. It's put on by a group of costume specific YouTube channels, folks who make costumes on YouTube. Either it's like sewing vlogs or historical reenactment, modeling of different types of clothes throughout history, or anything costume related. And it's free All you need is to be able to access YouTube and Instagram. Those are the two platforms on which it's going to happen. Oh, also Discord. If you are a Discord user, we will also have Discord channels specifically for attendees to meet one another and network. But primarily there will be live panels, premiere video releases, which means the maker is watching it as it releases and you can talk to them while it plays for the first time. And then just regular video releases that you can watch. Like, they're scheduled to come out at a given time, but you don't have to watch them at that time. You can watch them a month from now or whatever. There's going to be a badge program where you collect the badges as you watch the different videos and attend the different things, and that's just kind of an acquisitive, fun conference thing. And I think there are also some giveaways. I know one of my videos is a book chat between myself and Triffin Morris, who's one of my co-authors on A History of the Theater Costume Industry, Creators of Character, which is our book that's coming out in October, or actually I guess September 30th, the last day of September. We're going to give away a copy of that book when the book chat video drops, and that's just a discussion between Triffin and I about things about the book and writing it and costume history and things we learned in researching it. So anyway, I'm running my mouth and my stream has been over. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll hopefully see you next week, and if not, then at some future stream in which I might schedule. Okay.